I am Cassandra Hicks. I'm going to be presenting a longitudinal study of the effects of childhood anxiety to adult memory loss and cognitive impairment. I'm going to be sitting down for my presentation so that I can work this and so you can see me. I have very limited space. I apologize. We're going to make it work. So, my introduction included the fact that children are exposed to more and more stressful situations these days. Their parents are more stressed, and that just creates more stress for the children. Children are not typically developed to handle these kinds of situations. They are meant to be stressed out about sharing toys and not about losing family members or dealing with racial issues or addiction or issues that children these days are being faced with. I work in a preschool classroom. I hear children come to school crying about their parents' problems all the time. I know that these children are being faced with very difficult problems that they are not ready for yet. These experiences can cause the children to develop anxiety. With anxiety comes physical and mental symptoms. These symptoms can include a wide variety of things, but for the purpose of this study, we're going to be talking about the effect that childhood anxiety has on adult memory loss and cognitive functioning. So, memory loss can be improved in adulthood if you have had childhood anxiety and that has caused you to have adult memory loss. You can do things like go to therapy, you can play brain games, but it would rather be prevented than try to be improved. And it must be prevented in childhood because the anxiety that causes it happens in childhood. It would be much easier to prevent in childhood and more convenient than to go back and try to fix it later in life. To prevent it, we need to start building a positive cycle of mental health in children. And to do this, everybody has to calm down. That is a lot to ask for because adults are going to be stressed and they have reason to be stressed. There are so many things to be stressed about in the world, but children don't need to be so involved in that. They are, whether you want them to be or not. They are not stupid. They are very smart little guys that can pick up on your emotions. We don't need to hide things from them necessarily, but they don't need to be in such a stressful environment so much. So that cycle, whenever we have children that have a positive reaction to mental health and a positive idea of mental health, that will grow with them into adulthood, and then they will be adults with children who have the same ideas. That will create a positive cycle of childhood mental health being accepted and mental health being accepted in general and being talked about and being helped. My key words for this study are anxiety, memory loss, childhood, adulthood, mental disorder, adult memory, childhood anxiety, and cognitive impairment. In my literature review, I read about anxiety in childhood being correlated to memory loss and cognitive impairment in adulthood. Memory loss can be positive and it can be negative, meaning that negatively it can create some frustration and hostility, for example, in relationships. Whenever you forget a friend's birthday, that can upset them, and that type of memory loss is negative. You could forget where you put your keys last night, so you're late to work the next morning. That type of memory loss is negative. Memory loss can positively influence someone's life whenever they are forgetting traumatic experiences. So say in childhood you had a very traumatic experience and you've held on to that through adulthood. It's causing issues in your life. You don't know how to grieve it, and then you're able to forget it. Therapies now are helping adults forget these traumatic experiences from childhood, and that is a positive from memory loss. That is really helpful to some people who may have issues moving on from those traumatic experiences, learning to cope with those experiences so that you don't think about them all the time. That is a positive of memory loss. Another source that I used said that memory loss can cause anxiety. So this relationship is bidirectional because anxiety is not only causing memory loss is also causing anxiety. Anxiety can relate to poor performances in a variety of activities, such as in academics. Whenever you go in and you're nervous for a test, you're having anxious feelings, or you're feeling anxious about giving a presentation, it can cause you to not do as well. Your nerves can cause this stress and these symptoms to come out where you're sweating and you can't focus, and it creates some issues in lots of subjects like that. Anxiety can also impair working memory capacity. So instead of forgetting a memory, it may just not become a memory at all. So for example, we're going to stick with the friend's birthday. They told you their birthday is February 7th. Just pulled that date out of the air. And February 7th comes around, you don't say anything to them. They're upset. Obviously they're upset because they told you that was their birthday. You should have remembered. Well, that never became a memory in your brain because you have anxiety and it affected your working memory capacity. You weren't able to remember it because it never became a memory. Working memory and anxiety are strongly associated in that way. Another source that I used talked about functional somatic symptoms, and those are mental and physical symptoms caused by anxiety, depression, and other mental disorders. They include so many things like nausea, headaches, restlessness, overthinking. They're not just physical, they're also mental symptoms. And they're often misdiagnosed by doctors because they don't have a biological reason behind them. They're caused by the brain. So, for example, when you overthink something and it makes you nervous to the point where you're sick to your stomach, the doctor isn't going to know that you're thinking about something to the point that it makes you sick. They're going to try and find something wrong with your stomach or with this region of you, not with your brain. So these types of symptoms often go misdiagnosed because there is no biological reasoning behind them. It is all mental. Childhood anxiety increases the chance of having functional somatic symptoms in adulthood. This is true because the childhood anxiety doesn't always stay in childhood. It can move to adulthood with you. And whenever you're forgetting things or whenever you're not able to think clearly, that can cause you some anxiety and some nervousness and some worries that you're going to mess something up or that you are scared of what is to come. And that causes that uneasiness and the symptoms that come along with that. You know, for example, you are thinking about your presentation that you have to give the next day. You're laying in bed that night thinking about it and you can't sleep. So the next day comes to give your presentation and you're so tired you can't focus. These are all symptoms of this anxiety that could have developed in childhood. So in my rationale, I explained that anxiety, memory loss, and cognitive impairment have clear effects on one another. We know that from what I've talked about so far. Their correlation is bidirectional in that they affect each other. One doesn't go one way, they go both ways. They're both affecting each other at all times. So I plan to replicate the study by Synoff and Warner to show the connection between anxiety, memory loss, and cognitive functioning. The participants that are age 18 and under of my study will determine the presence or lack of anxiety. We're not asking them to rate their level of anxiety. We're just looking to find out, do they have symptoms of anxiety or do they not? Later in life, the participants over the age of 18 will be given a survey of their memory because they're not children anymore. We're not focused on their anxiety anymore. We're focused on their memory and their cognition. So they're going to be given a survey that focuses on those two things. We hypothesize that there is no correlation between childhood anxiety and adult memory loss or cognitive impairment. Alternatively, we hypothesize that anxiety in childhood has a correlation to adult memory loss and to cognitive impairment. Our demographic variables are defined here, and they are as follows. Age is defined as the number of chronological years since birth. Gender is defined for the purpose of this study as either male or female. Classification is defined as child, adolescent, young adult, or older adult. Ethnicity is defined as shared cultural characteristics such as language, ancestry, practices, and beliefs. Marital status for this study is defined as married or unmarried. Hometown is defined as the place in which the participant currently resides in. So some of these things may change throughout the study because this study is longitudinal. It will follow the same participants throughout many years. Some of these demographic variables are up for change. They may become married at some point. They may move because we're starting when they're children. We will assume they are unmarried and they live wherever their parents live. These things may change later. My main variables are anxiety, which is defined as anxious or nervous feelings. Memory loss is defined as the inability to recollect a specific event. Cognitive impairment is defined as atypical cognitive functioning regarding the individual or developmental milestones. My research design is longitudinal, like I just said. We're going to follow the same 50 participants for many years throughout their life. We are going to select 10 participants from 5 different Arkansas elementary schools, one in each region of the state. The goal here is to find a correlation between the childhood anxiety and adult memory loss and cognitive impairment. Like I said, there will be 50 elementary school participants that are age 5. They should be equally male and female. There will be a variation of ethnic groups. We're spreading them out to all the regions of Arkansas to get as much variety as possible. Some of the participants will have symptoms of anxiety and some will not. The ones without anxiety are just as important to this study as the ones with anxiety. We are not looking for anyone specific. We will randomly select our 50 participants. My instruments include an initial consent by participants' guardian and their assent also. The consent to recruit students will be completed by the school district. It could be done by the principal, the superintendent, somebody that has authority within the school will have to give us consent to contact their parents. And we're going to do so in such a way as sending home an informational letter, which we'll talk about in a minute. It will include all of the requirements of this study, all of the information that goes with this study. It will let them know that at each check-in they will just be completing a short survey. We won't take anything else from them but their time for a few minutes and this information provided on the survey. The procedures that we will follow after sending the consent form to the school and receiving that back with consent, we will send informational letters home with students that are age 5 within the school. Only students that are age 5 because our beginning of the study is at age 5. Participants will be randomly chosen, like I said. They will check in at age 5 right after their acceptance to this study, at age 10, at age 18, and then every 10 years until they're 68. So 28, 38, 48, 58, and 68 will be the final check-in. Their time at the check-in will include a demographic survey because we talked about those things may change over time, and a short survey about their anxiety or their memory depending on their age. Until they're 18, they will be completing a survey about anxiety because we're talking about childhood anxiety. We'll be asking them questions in their childhood about their anxiety. After they've turned 18, they'll be completing a survey of their adult memory because they are adults now. So they'll be asked questions about their memory rather than their anxiety. This is my informed consent form. It includes the title of my project, the purpose of my project being to find this correlation between anxiety in childhood and memory loss and cognitive impairment in adulthood. the procedures that we will follow, which I just explained, the confidentiality and safeguards that are in place to protect these participants. It will also include the risks, however, there are none for this particular study. It will include the benefits, which there also are none for this particular study, except contributing to this study being a benefit, if you consider that a benefit. They're contributing to science and helping us gather information. It also lets them know they have the right to withdraw at any time for any reason with no questions asked. They do not have to participate if they don't want to. They can quit anytime, and they have that information in this consent form. They are also given our contact information so that they may withdraw at any time, so that they may contact us about the study, so that they can file a complaint for ethical reasons, for any reasons. Any reason they would need to contact us, that information is in this form. Okay, we're moving on to my instruments. The first one is my demographic survey with all of those demographic variables that we talked about a minute ago, including gender, age, classification, ethnicity, marital status, and hometown. I want to talk about hometown again for just a minute because we said it was for every region of the state. So hometown does not include towns. It includes central, northwest, northeast, southwest, and southeast Arkansas. This has potential to change as the participants may move when they get older. They may move when they're younger, who knows? But they will just select whichever region their hometown is within. Our next instrument is the survey that the participants will take when they're age 5 and 10. They may be aided in this survey if they don't have the ability to read yet. Typical 5-year-olds are learning to read, so they may need some help with this at age 5. But we will give them the survey exactly as it says. Some of the questions included are, I feel excited, always, sometimes neutral, almost never, or never. I think about the times when I was scared. My parents tell me to calm down when I'm scared. They're going to rate how often they have these feelings or how often these things happen to them. We're not asking them, do you have anxiety or do you not have anxiety? Because a 5-year-old isn't going to know what that is, or if they have it. They may say yes and have no idea. That's how 5-year-olds are. But we're going to ask them questions that will help us decide whether they have a lack of or presence of anxiety. At age 18, we're going to change the survey just a little bit because they are grown-ups and they don't need this child language in their survey. We're going to modify the language to be more adult-like. So their statements that they will be rating include, I often have feelings of fear, or I often look back on times I was scared, or I often feel scared when I try new things. These are the same questions, they're just worded a little differently to fit an 18-year-old rather than a 5 or 10-year-old. The next instrument is for the participants when they're age 28 and up. So this is the one they will take every time following their 18th birthday. They will be asked to rate these statements, including, I can remember a significant event that happened 10 minutes ago. I can remember birthdays and important dates. I feel worried about forgetting important things I already know. So you can see we've shifted our focus from childhood anxiety to now adult memory loss and cognitive functioning. We're not children anymore, we're adults. We're focusing on memory and cognition rather than anxiety in our surveys. My expected outcomes of this study are to find a correlation between the childhood anxiety and memory loss, and also to find the correlation between that childhood anxiety and cognitive impairment. My references are included here. They include vitamin C attenuating memory loss induced by post-traumatic stress-like behavior in rat models by Al-Zubi, Shatnawi, Al-Qada, and Al-Fiqi. A study by Campo, that is the annual research review of functional somatic symptoms and associated anxiety and depression. A study by March, Briere, and von Baer, Children's Forgetting of Pain-Related Memories. That was the one we talked about with forgetting the traumatic experiences and how beneficial that is for people. A study by McNally, Perlman, Restuccia, and Clancy is the clinical characteristics of adults reporting repressed, recovered, or continuous memories of childhood sexual abuse. That one showed the negative sides of remembering those painful memories and repressing those feelings instead of accepting them and coping with them. Another one was by Morin, and it was anxiety and the working memory capacity and how those things work together, how they affect each other, how anxiety can cause strain on your working memory. Signoff and Warner is the study that we plan to replicate here in anxiety disorder and accompanying subjective memory loss in the elderly as a predictor of future cognitive decline. We're going to replicate that, except we're going to start in childhood rather than with elderly people, and we're going to move on throughout their life to hopefully expand on their study a little bit. Thank you.